2. Reunion. The cheers died away at last, and the Führer left the podium. Hermann Göring hurried after him. Hitler would be tired and drained as always after his speech, and he would need the reassurance of his most faithful supporter at his side. Goebbels and Ribbentrop would be sucking up to him as usual, but they could be discounted. Himmler was the only one to worry about, thought Göring grimly. His influence was growing in a very worrying fashion. Recently Hitler had taken to referring to him as his faithful Heinrich. Making ruthless use of his bulk and his authority, Göring barged his way through the crowd to the entrance in his waiting limousine. At the magnificent reception in the Deutsche Hof, the Führer's favourite old hotel, Göring was first at Hitler's side. "A magnificent speech, my Führer," he said solemnly. "As always, you show us the way forward. We are nothing without you." Himmler bustled in to pay his own grovelling tribute, but after that it could only be second best. Party officials and high-ranking officers gathered round to add to the ritual chorus of praise, and Göring, looking on with cynical amusement, signalled a waiter for more champagne. An SS officer came into the room and whispered in Himmler's ear. Himmler scowled, asked questions, then followed the messenger reluctantly from the room. Curious, Göring strolled after them. In the anteroom we found a small, dark man and a pretty, round-faced girl under the guard of a nervous SS captain and a couple of stormtroopers. "The gentleman claimed to be a guest of the Führer," the young officer was saying. "Upon his orders, I ejected Herr Essler of the Nuremberg Party Committee from his box." He gulped unhappily. "Later, however, at Herr Essler's insistence, I checked the guest list and found no mention of any such visitor. As the gentleman insists he is the Führer's guest, I thought it best to refer the matter to the highest level." Coldly, Himmler surveyed the two prisoners. "The story is absurd. I would have been informed. They are undoubtedly terrorist assassins. Take them to Gestapo HQ and execute them as soon as they have confessed." The captain turned to give the order, but before he could speak, Göring intervened. "Not so fast, Heinrich," he boomed. "Plenty of time to shoot them later. Let's have a look at them." He loomed menacingly over the male prisoner. "So you claim to be an old friend of the Führer, eh?" The man inclined his head. "We met in Munich in 1923. "I don't recall seeing you." "Yet I saw you. I trust the wound left no ill effects." Göring laughed and slapped his belly. "Oh, I survived, as you can see. The doctor's drugs harmed me more than the wound. They pumped so much morphine into me they damn near turned me into a drug addict." He turned to Himmler. "I think we'd better check this man's story. You know how the Führer treasures anyone from the old days. His old fighters, he calls them." "I tell you I would have been informed," hissed Himmler furiously. Göring chuckled. "Oh, I don't think the Führer tells you absolutely everything, Heinrich." Suddenly, there was a bustle of movement from the main room. Göring and Himmler leapt smartly aside, and Adolf Hitler himself came through the doorway. He seemed tired, drained, as if the speech had exhausted him. He looked curiously at the little group by the door. "What is this?" "Nothing," began Himmler. The booming voice of Göring overrode him. "Mein Führer, this gentleman claims an acquaintance from the old days in Munich." Hitler's eyes flickered incuriously over the doctor. "I have no recollection." Suddenly the man stepped forward to confront him, piercing grey eyes locking with Hitler's bright blue. In some strange way, thought Göring, it was a meeting of equals. The prisoner's voice was urgent and compelling. "Look more closely. Remember a time when you were in pain, in danger, and in despair. Remember someone who eased the pain, took you to safety. I told you that one day you would rule Germany, and that we should meet again." Hitler stared hard at him for a moment. Then he stepped forward and folded the stranger in a formal embrace. A gasp of astonishment went through the room. Hitler stepped back, looking delightedly at the newcomer. "You have returned, Doctor, just as you said you would." "And now you rule Germany," said the doctor, "just as I said you would." Hitler looked round the room, a hand on the doctor's shoulder. "This man gave me help in my darkest hour. More than that, he gave me hope. He believed in my success." There was a polite murmur of astonishment and applause. "It was not a matter of belief," said the doctor calmly. "I knew that you would rule, just as I know now that you have many troubles, many enemies. That is why I have returned." Hitler regarded him intently. We shall talk again very soon. He turned to the officers in his entourage. The doctor and his companion are the honoured guests of the Reich. Let suitable accommodation be found for them, here at the Deutscher Hof. Tomorrow they return with me to Berlin. As Hitler swept out of the room, Ace turned to the doctor and whispered, "Congratulations, Professor, you've done it again!" "Listen," hissed the doctor. "I'm a wandering scientist and a scholar, and you're my niece. Be as enigmatic as possible, and give the impression that I'm a strange and mysterious character with a number of mystic powers." "Just stick to the truth, you mean?" Before the doctor could reply, the crowd descended upon them. Goering claimed them as his property, sweeping them into the luxurious inner reception room, an impressive chandelier-lit chamber where groups of high-ranking officers, party officials and local dignitaries and their female companions sipped champagne and munched elaborate canapes. The story of what had happened was sweeping the room, and everyone was looking, openly or furtively, at Ace and the doctor as they entered. They had been touched by greatness, and everybody wanted to be their friend. Summoning waiters to serve them, Goering looked at the doctor with frank curiosity. "You're something of a phenomenon, my friend. I've never seen the Führer give anyone a welcome like that. What did you do? Save his life?" The doctor smiled modestly and said nothing. Goering turned to Himmler, who was hovering awkwardly nearby. "Well, I certainly saved your life, Heinrich. You nearly shot the Führer's dearest friend." Himmler gave the doctor a stiff little bow. "I trust you will forgive my initial suspicion. The safety of the Führer is always my first concern." The doctor bowed. "It is also mine." Ace was uncomfortably aware that everyone in the room seemed to be looking at them. "I feel like a film star, Professor." The doctor gave her a "what can you do" shrug, and was immediately swallowed up by a group of his new-found admirers. Suddenly Ace heard an oily voice in her ear. "Are you interested in a career in the cinema, my dear? With such youth and charm, anything is possible. Perhaps I could be of assistance." She turned and saw a dark, ratty-looking little man at her elbow. He smiled ingratiatingly and put a hand on her arm. "Allow me to introduce myself. Joseph Goebbels, Minister of Propaganda. The cinema, like all aspects of Reich culture, is among my responsibilities." Ace snatched her arm away. "Really?" she said in a bored voice. Goebbels was undeterred. "Shall we discuss the matter somewhere a little less crowded? My suite, perhaps?" Ace considered giving him a swift clip round the ear, but decided it would be tactless. "I don't think so," she said sweetly. "I'm not really thinking of becoming a film star. That was just a silly joke. My real interest is science and archaeology. My uncle and I have just been making a study of the inscriptions on the pyramids, you know. It's a fascinating subject." Goebbels hated intelligent women. He murmured a few smarmy civilities and melted away. Someone called von Ribbentrop turned up next. "I'm foreign minister at the moment," he told her pompously. "Such a great responsibility. But my happiest time was as ambassador to England. Are you familiar with the court of St. James?" "Not really," said Ace. "Have you ever been to Perivale?" Goering, meanwhile, was keeping a keen eye on this mysterious doctor. He noticed that the newcomer was continually looking around the room. "Can I assist you, Herr Doctor? I know most people here." "That man over there, the tall, white-bearded fellow with the cloak and the stick." "Ah, Dr. Kriegsleiter," said Goering instantly. "Do you know him?" "I'm not sure. He seems familiar somehow." Goering was interested in Kriegsleiter himself, and suspicious of him too. "It's unusual for him to be here. He seldom attends social functions. His health's not good. Crippled from birth, poor fellow." "Who is he exactly?" Goering shrugged massive shoulders. "Some kind of mystic philosopher. The Führer's very taken with him, insists on having him on the platform for all his main speeches. Look, he's coming over." As if aware of the doctor's regard, Kriegsleiter was limping towards them. The nearer he got, the stranger he appeared. It was clear that the body beneath the all-enveloping cloak was tragically deformed. He moved surprisingly quickly with an odd spidery gait, as if there might be 8 legs rather than 2 under his cloak. His head was enormously large and oddly shaped, though the shock of white hair and the bushy white beard helped to disguise the fact. He bowed when he reached the doctor. I hope I do not intrude. His voice was rich and deep. I felt I had to permit myself a word with our mystery guest. I am Dr. Kriegsleiter. The doctor bowed in return. And I am the doctor. Ah, you are here incognito. I very much hope so. And you are a doctor of? Practically everything, said the doctor modestly. And you? My field is the esoteric, the unknown. The Führer is very interested in such things, but then, of course, you know him well. We met quite briefly many years ago, said the doctor. I shall be very interested to see what directions his tastes have developed. From the warmth of the Führer's greeting, I thought you must be old friends. I was able to be of service to him, said the doctor. I hope I may be so in the future. We must all serve the Führer in our different ways, said Kriegsleiter. Herr Doctor, I'm sure we shall meet again. The words sounded curiously like a threat. It's very strange, said the doctor. I keep getting an odd feeling that we've met before. I'm afraid your appearance is quite unfamiliar to me, Doctor, said Kriegsleiter. He smiled wryly. And I'm sure you would have remembered mine. I wasn't talking about appearances, said the doctor. Perhaps in some other life, then. Do you believe in reincarnation, Doctor? Kriegsleiter bowed again and limped quickly away. Goering had been watching these exchanges with intense curiosity. What do you make of him? I'm not sure. Our Führer takes up with such people from time to time, but he usually tires of them. This Kriegsleiter has lasted longer than most. Perhaps it's time for a change. Perhaps it is. Of course, if the Führer had an advisor of sense and discretion, a man one could talk to, a practical man, said Goering meaningfully. Have you ever been in the service of the state, Doctor? I suppose I did once hold a semi-official position, said the doctor. I was unpaid scientific advisor to a government security organisation. In Germany? No, in England. So much the better. The Führer has great admiration for the English. Another Aryan race, you know. And in Berlin, such an appointment would certainly not be unpaid. In such a post, a man could do great service to the Reich, and to himself. He could have almost anything he wanted. Indeed, said the doctor. Fortunately, my wants are few. Everybody wants something, Doctor, said Goering jovially. You must come and visit me at Karrenhall. Are you fond of hunting? As soon as he could, the doctor pleaded tiredness, and he and Ace were shown to a luxurious two-bedroom suite, extremely modern, in spite of the age of the hotel. The Führer always stays here at Deutscherhof when he comes to Nuremberg, said the chambermaid proudly. Of course we had to have the whole place rebuilt to suit him. When they were alone, Ace looked at the doctor. Do we have to go and sit in the bathroom again? The doctor shook his head. I brought this from the TARDIS. He produced an old-fashioned pocket watch, opened the back to reveal complex electronic circuitry and a tiny flashing blue light, shut it, and put it back in his pocket. High-frequency sonic pulse. They're not catching me out again. I am now unbuggable. Ace yawned. Good for you, Professor. You were a great social success tonight. Only because I got hugged by Hitler, said the doctor with a grimace. Everybody was trying to get in with me, to gain the ear of the Führer's favourite. Goering seemed to be offering me some kind of job, he frowned. I wonder what he's up to. You know, I got the impression he was badly worried. Worried about Hitler. Ace was looking thoughtfully at him. You like it, don't you, Professor? She said suddenly. All the lying and cheating and treachery. You even enjoy it. The doctor smiled wryly. Perhaps I do in a way. You have to remember, I grew up in a society so complex, devious and corrupt, it makes this lot look like kindergarten. What, you? A Time Lord? I should have thought it was all sweetness and light and high tea in the nursery. The doctor shook his head. When it comes to low cunning and high treason, the Nazis have got nothing on the Time Lords of Gallifrey. He stretched out in an armchair, hands clasped behind his head. Quite a successful evening on the whole. While I'm in the Führer's favour, I'll be at the centre of things, a good place to look around. Look around for what? For whoever's controlling the Führer for a start. Any suspects? I met a man called Kriegsleiter tonight, the man we saw on the platform. I saw you talking to him. He looked really strange. He was, said the doctor, strange and strangely familiar. As the reception drew to its close, Goering found himself taken aside by Himmler. I wonder what little Heine wants, thought Goering. He took another swig of champagne. Himmler, who was sipping orange juice as usual, gave him a reproving look. "This doctor," he began, "what do you make of him?" "I'm not sure. What do you think?" "It is strange," said Himmler. "It is very strange that anyone could be so close to the Führer and I not know him." "I liked him," said Goering. "Quite a formidable personality in a quiet way. Not very impressive to look at, but still looks aren't everything, eh, Heinrich?" To Goering's vast amusement, Himmler flushed angrily. He was actually aware of the contrast between his own pot-bellied, short-sighted figure and the blonde young giants on the SS recruiting posters. "I am not in favour of any new entrant to the Führer's circle at the moment," said Himmler meaningfully. "While this problem continues," Goering nodded, "we can't conceal it forever, you know. Suppose it happens in public, whilst he's making a speech." "According to Dr. Kriegslater, the Führer is most vulnerable after a speech, when he is exhausted and his defences are low." "But the attacks are getting more frequent." "Dr. Kriegslater is confident that they can be controlled, perhaps by the use of hypnotism, if only the Führer will consent." "He won't," said Goering defiantly. "You set great store by this Kriegslater, don't you?" "Dr. Kriegslater is an exceptionally brilliant man. The work of his Aryan Research Bureau is proving immensely valuable to the SS and to the Reich." Goering laughed. "It's time you realise the SS is a private army of hired killers, not a mystic order of soldier monks. I've heard what you get up to in that castle of yours, secret altars, SS chapels." "National Socialism is a matter of the spirit, not just of the flesh," said Himmler angrily. "Tell you what, Heinrich, you provide the spirit and I'll provide the flesh." Goering's great belly shook, and he hooted with laughter. "Meanwhile, what are we going to do about this mysterious doctor?" Himmler shrugged. "If the Führer is determined to befriend him, there is little we can do, except watch him, of course." "Of course," said Goering mockingly. "But then, you watch everyone, don't you, Heinrich?" Himmler glared angrily at him, but made no reply. Goering smiled to himself at the irony of it all. They hated and feared each other, and they were deadly rivals for high office in the Reich and for the favour of the Führer. However, for the moment, they were allies. They knew, both of them, that the continued success of the Reich, their careers, their fortunes, their very lives, depended on one man, Adolf Hitler, the Führer. And the Führer was going mad.